The beauty of Colorado has inspired artists for decades. I've been studying the history of Colorado, and I have made this documentary to elucidate its history, from the Native Americans through the settlement and colonial days to the conflicts and capital city that made this state great. Colorado is a diverse state. It is filled with mountains, plateaus, deserts, and valleys. It encompasses the Great Plains, the Rocky Mountains, and the Colorado Plateau. The Continental Divide runs north to south down the length of the Rocky Mountains. There are over 53 mountains in Colorado that soar above 14,000 feet, the highest of which is Mount Elbert, measured at 14,433 feet. The Rio Grande, Platte, Colorado, and Arkansas rivers all begin in the high mountains of Colorado. But Colorado's story begins with the first known inhabitants of Colorado, the Anasazi Pueblos. Their presence has been recorded in places like Mesa Verde National Park, where their cliff dwellings are carved into the rock face. They stand as evidence of ancient peoples whose ancestors disappeared, but whose kind persists to this day. The Native Americans of Colorado have included the Apache, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, the Pueblo, the Shoshone, and the Ute. But only two federally recognized Indian tribes in Colorado today are the Southern Ute and the Mountain Ute. The Native Americans roamed throughout the land we now call Colorado, following the game that they hunted. The Utes were the first to acquire horses from the Spanish in the late 1500s. The Ute Trail later became the Spanish Trail, used by Spanish explorers in the late 15th and 16th centuries. The Native Americans were often friendly to newcomers, teaching the new inhabitants how to survive in Colorado's dramatic landscape. The next people to come to Colorado were the Spanish. The Spanish were always in search of gold, so when they found a little gold in the southern Rocky Mountains, they started to send explorers on expeditions in the southern Colorado territory. Though they never found substantial amounts of gold, they did give Colorado its name, which means red.
These are the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Too bad, the Spanish never made it past them. They had a few failed settlements here, but that was it.
Lieutenant Declan was the first American to be sent into the southwestern part of the newly acquired Louisiana Territory in 1806. His mission was to make maps and collect specimens. Following the exploration of the new territory, the first real settlers would decide to call Colorado home. These were the Mountain Men.
After the War of 1812, trappers came out here to get themselves rich by trapping beaver, bison, elk, and other animals for their pelts. Then they go back to St. Louis, sell their beaver pelts to wealthy businessmen, and then the businessmen would sell them to people in Europe.
Following on in the settlement of Colorado, we come to the infamous Colorado Gold Rush in 1850.
This is Cherry Creek. It runs through the center of Denver, Colorado. It was here in the mid-1800s that gold was first found in Colorado.
The Colorado Gold Rush brought a boom to immigrants and Americans moving westward in the hopes of striking it rich. Soon, the motto of the miners, called 59ers, was Pike's Peak or Bust. Pike's Peak, named after Lieutenant Zebulon Pike, was the location of the first mining frenzy. Later, towns like Black Hawk, Colorado City, and Silverton would become infamous Colorado mining towns. As the mining settlements grew, the wagon trains poured westward and into Colorado.
This is one of the wagons that they went west in. So say you're a blacksmith, and you've got to carry your anvil all the way from New York because you want to go west. But when you get to the Rocky Mountains, you think your anvil is going to be too heavy to go over the small pathways. So you decide to set up shop in Fort Denver or Fort Collins.
These migrants often stayed and created new settlements, and this leads us into a new phase in Colorado's history, the colonial phase, which preceded and followed Colorado's statehood in 1876. One of the most notable people from this time period is General William Palmer. He started the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad, and with a vision to connect new settlements by narrow gauge railroad, this allowed steam trains to replace mule trains as a source of transportation from mines to towns. He later founded Colorado Springs as an international resort destination. Following the Homestead Act of 1862, people moved to Colorado and set up colonial homesteads, bringing with it a landscape marked by newly created irrigation canals. This influx of settlements saw its fair share of conflicts. Colorado had many fires, floods, Union strikes, and the devastation of the Dust Bowl. But the most notable conflicts were between the white man and the natives, culminating in the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864. It was a bloody betrayal of a peace treaty made with the Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians living in the Colorado Territory. 163, mainly women and children, were brutally mutilated and killed by a U.S. cavalry charge of 675 men. Most of that cavalry came from Denver, the most populous city in Colorado. Denver's beginnings started with a man named William Lambert, a city promoter from Kansas. He established the town site in 1858. In 1881, Denver became the state capital of Colorado. It is called the Mile High City because it is 1 mile above sea level. The Capitol building's dome is made of solid gold, gifted to the state by the Colorado Gold Miners. Colorado has 2 senators and 7 representatives in the U.S. Congress. Within the state General Assembly, there are 65 seats and representatives serve a 2-year term. In this documentary, I set out to bring to life the history of Colorado. But one documentary could not convey all there is to know about Colorado. A state brimming with agriculture like beef, lamb, vineyards, wheat, and fruits. A state vast with natural resources like oil, natural gas, and coal and ore. A state whose industries range from manufacturing to tourism to cattle. It's a place like no other, and its history and future are just as unique. The Native Americans were the first peoples of Colorado, but it was the settlers and colonists, able to overcome conflicts, who truly made this state great. Colorado will continue to inspire those who experience its beauty. What American Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Wallace Stegner once said will always ring true. One cannot be pessimistic about the West. This is the true native home of hope.